here in just a moment as Grace will start with a Temple of Abandon.
And Austin here with what appears to be becoming kind of an industry standard build of Obzon midrange, where Sylvan Caryatid has been removed from the deck entirely. There's main deck copies of End Hostilities, main deck copies of Read the Bones, a much more controlling version of the build.
Dan Musser putting this deck on the map in DC. We watched him quite a few times over the course of that weekend without his Caryatids, with a lot more main deck removal. As Grace is going to play a copy of Radiclaw Mystic and pass the turn back. So it looks like the direction people are going, as Heroes of Thoughtseize. Grace ought to reveal the hand. He is on a mulligan of 6, and you will see his hand. Courser of Crewfix, an Elvish Mystic, a Pelucranos, World Eater, and the new guy, Whisperwood Elemental.
Yeah, this is a card that's received quite a bit of hype, although hasn't really appeared too much in decks thus far.
4 copies of that card in Grace's build of Green-Red Devotion. Courser of Crewfix is going to bite the dust. We'll head back Tannon's way. Tannon will take a draw step. It's a forest. That will allow him to play his Pelucranos, and I don't think he can do that fast enough. So there is the 5-5, and we're going to head back Austin's way. Now, of course, these Obzon midrange decks flush with removal.
And this is the type of draw that Obzon midrange is pretty good at picking apart here, because it has access cards like Hero's Downfall and Obzon Charm, which are pretty good responses to just kind of generic big creatures.
Of course, we're going to come down, reveal Read the Bones. So Grace will at least get one attack in here with Pelucranos if you'd like. I was a little surprised not to just see a Hero's Downfall take care of the Pelucranos there.
I agree. I mean, 5, I guess he feels like in this matchup, if Tannon's going to win, it's going to be this overwhelming advantage. He's probably not going to win by just dealing 5 here and 5 there, but this is a lot of damage to take, and it looks particularly bad with no land coming.
Elvish Mystic coming on down. Now, right now, Nykthos can generate 4 green mana, but 4 is not 5, so Whisperwood Elemental will not be able to join the party yet this turn. And Grace will just pass the turn back. Benson's draw, of course, is that Read the Bones. Top card here is a Windswept Teeth, so life is good for the Courser. Trigger, little life gain. Take a look at the top card. It's another copy of Windswept Teeth. Benson going to consult his hand now. Again, does have a copy of Hero's Downfall that he can cast to take care of Pelucranos. He will do just that. Wants to do it on his turn so that Nykthos is slowed down a little bit.
Yeah, he does know about the Whisperwood Elemental here, so does not want him operating with a bunch of mana in the following turn.
Grace will take a draw. It's a copy of Temple of Abandon. So Tannon going to take a look at the cards in his hand again. Does have a backup copy of Pelucranos as well that he could deploy if he'd like. Depends on which card he really values more. As you have to imagine that Austin has another removal spell.
Most likely. And I think this configuration of Obzon midrange is especially challenging for Tannon's build. The main deck and hostility seem very punishing.
Whisperwood Elemental going to come in, and it's time to manifest. So you see this card at the beginning of your end step, manifest the top card of your library. 4 mana, 5/5 here. You sacrifice Whisperwood Elemental. In a turn, face up non-token creatures you control gain. When this creature dies, manifest the top card of your library. So pretty weird card.
Yeah, the second part of that text box is a little hard to parse out because there's a lot of, face up, non-token. But basically, it is a source of a 2/2 every single turn, and some of those things that you manifest may actually be a bit better than that face down, and it gives you some protection against sweepers.
Siege Rhino is the draw. Temple of Malady will come into play off of the Courser. A little life gain, time to scry as well here for Benson. Well, he'll have to reveal that card to everybody. So there is Courser, it's going to the bottom. Now we take a look at the top card. And it looks like that may have supposed to been the top card, so we'll get this all sorted out here in just a moment, as it is random.
Yep.
See the players having a little conversation back and forth between themselves and with the table judge, so. There has been a little bit of scrying here too, so I'd be very surprised if there's a shuffling of the deck or anything like that.
Yeah, we know that there's at least the Courser on the bottom, for example.
Yep. So they'll have the top card, the bottom card, which is the Courser. That'll go away for the moment, and it'll go back on the bottom of the deck, and then this will be shuffled in.
It used to be like scenarios like this back in the day.
You lose.
Yeah, the penalty was quite a bit harsher, but now they take a much more pragmatic approach to fixing situations like this, which is let's set aside the parts of the deck that we know have a certain position, like something that's been scried to the bottom, shuffle up, and let's play on. It's a policy I like a bit better than you lose the game.
Get out of our tournament.
Yeah. Go home, you cheater.
You're saying that was a little too harsh.
A little harsh.
Okay. Siege Rhino's pretty harsh. That's going to come in. Our first one of the day. First of what are likely many of those. We can't get away from this card. You got a Modern Open Series event that's coming up in a couple weeks. You better buckle in because you're going to have to see quite a few of those.
Very popular in a variety of green, white, black rate strategies.
Ah, yes, rates.
Rates, good rates.
Grace will take a draw step here. Does have a Flukernos in his hand. He saw the Temple of Abandon last turn, allowed him to scry. Looking to get a bit of an advantage going here with Whisperwood Elemental. But that, along with the rest of his squad, cannot get through Siege Rhino. Though it does make you wonder what that card is that's face down.
And Corsair plus Whisperwood Elemental is a nice little interaction.
Yeah. Let you know what's going on.
Yep.
Gives away the information to the opponent, though, too. It's a little unfortunate.
Just another little thing of, I like to have this information when I'm operating with fetch lands and all this kind of stuff. When do I want to shuffle? Gets a little bit more value there.
Well, it looks like Grace is going to deploy a Courser. So there that is. Top card. Shaman of the Great Hunt. Grace's Nykthos is going to generate him quite a bit of mana right now as he's, oh boy.
Ooh, it's got a goodie down there.
I like this. Flukernos. Oh, Mufasa. That is an Arbor Colossus. That's 6 points of damage. Boy, oh boy. And now you get to manifest a Shaman of the Great Hunt down there. Okay. I smell what the Whisperwood Elemental is cooking.
And great protection against end hostilities here as well.
Yes. This is kind of nice. Xenagos the top card. Now, this is a deck that's been picking up in Florida a little bit. Brennan DiCandio, a friend of Mark Nestico, if you do read his stuff. Congratulations to Mark for winning a PTQ, by the way, with Red-White Aggro. But Brennan has been playing this Green-Red Devotion type strategy down in the Florida area and been giving it to players. And those players have been doing quite well with it. So if you've been following Nestico's articles or just results from the Florida area, you're familiar with this deck list. But a lot of players aren't because we haven't really had it under the lights.
Right.
And what I'm seeing thus far is pretty powerful stuff.
Nykthos is still one of the best cards in Standard. Whether or not people are playing it, that's a different thing. But
here's an Obzon Charm. That's going to take care of Arbor Colossus. On the Rhinos feeling frisky coming in the red zone. So Grace will take 4 points. Flukernos in hand. Xenagos coming off the top of the deck. Let's see what Corsair reveals. A Nissa.
And I think, Austin would probably have preferred to get the Whisperwood Elemental off the table there, but with Austin's next draw step being Wingmate Rock, he just can't allow Arbor Colossus to be in play.
Yeah, absolutely not. Also, Arbor Colossus just reigns supreme on this battlefield.
Yeah, it's the biggest thing going on.
So now Grace is going to do a little bit of math. How much mana can he generate? How big of a turn can he have? When you got Nykthos on the table, you can have a heck of a turn, but with Shaman of the Great Hunt, the card that's manifested right now, you can flip that up for 4 mana. Maybe you can even flip it up and activate the ability, too.
If Austin's going to try to settle into this control route, pretty good response here from Tannon is just start drawing some cards.
Now, how to work your way through this entire thing, that part's a little bit more difficult. Tannon's got a lot of options here. You can see his turn's taking a little while because he's got to figure out everything that he can do and what the best way is to go. Also knowing that Anissa is probably being manifested this turn, so that's not something that probably works its way into the equation as far as what he can do the next turn.
Well, not necessarily, because he could, I believe he has enough mana where he could flip up the Shaman and activate this turn.
Sure. And
put the Nissa into his hand, which gives him another crack at either finding a land for his Courser or finding a creature that he would prefer to manifest with the Whisperwood Elemental.
So it looks like it's going to be a Nykthos activation. Now Nykthos right now, if it is for green, it would be for 6 green mana. But again, very difficult with all this mana available, exactly what Grace wants to do.
And the cards in his hand also add to the permutations of how much mana he has left over and what his Nykthos is doing, so this is a very tricky turn.
Yeah, Xenagos, for example, is a card that generates more mana. There's more things he can do. It looks like maybe Tannon's figured out step one, which is attack with a Courser and attack with the Whisperwood Elemental. Looks like Courser's just going to block Courser. That's fine. 4 damage will come across. Benson going to go down to 9. Now let's see what the follow-up's going to be.
I mean, the Xenagos in his hand can make a boatload of mana. There's so many permutations to this turn. I'm sympathetic with how long it is taking Tannon because there's a lot of different options afforded to him right now.
So here's Pelucranos off the Nykthos activation. Now he's going to follow up by just fighting, getting Courser off the table. Pelucranos will become a 7/7. Manifest. This is down. Crater's Claw is the reveal.
And I think part of this line of play from Tannon here is really raising the opportunity cost of Austin attacking with the Siege Rhino because he knows Wingmate Rock is coming. So he gets rid of one creature. He says to Austin, okay, if you want to get a rated Wingmate Rock, you would just have to run your Siege Rhino into my 7/7.
A rated Wingmate Rock is not going to win this game.
No.
Not when there's a Fireball on top of the deck and a whole bunch of mana. Crater's Claw, 2 copies of that card here in Grace's deck.
Austin surveying the battlefield here. Doesn't look too good. Yep.
So my attack with Siege Rhino is not very good. All right, you win. Tannon Grace does win. Game number 1 here over Austin Benson. Green Red Devotion up a game over Abzan mid-range. Time to turn our attention to the sideboard. And this will be interesting because, again, Green Red Devotion, this deck that Grace is playing, it's not something that is ubiquitous. It's not something that everyone knows. You don't know exactly what the deck looks like. You don't really know what he's up to. So I don't imagine that Benson has cards that are specifically for this matchup, though given Abzan's propensity to be able to just beat creature strategies, he's got to have something.
Well, let's look here. He's got an Erase, 2 copies of Glare of Heresy, 2 copies of Burmaz, 2 copies of Drown Sorrow, a Silence the Believers, a Murderous Cut, a Stain the Mind, a Liliana Vess, a Nissa Woolwaker, and a Ajani Mentor of Heroes, a Tassiger, the Golden Thing, 1 copy in the main, 1 copy in the sideboard, and 1 Gurk, a Brex Predator. The cards that I like in this matchup here are the 2 copies of Drown Sorrow. Not good against everything that Tannon's doing, but it does break up the mana creatures. You've seen Elvish Mystic, you've seen Rattleclaw Mystic. I think that's good enough to bring in that card. The spot removal is excellent here. Silence the Believers, Murderous Cut, even Gurk, Apex Predator, I think are all upgrades for Austin here as well. He just needs as much creature removal. And I like having a mixture of things that pin the mana creatures and also can just easily kill the random Pelucranoses and Whisperwood Elementals that slip through the cracks.
2 copies of Arc Lighting, 2 Wild Slash, 2 Nylea's Disciple, 2 Reclamation Sage, a Setessan Tactics, and Arbor Colossus, 3 copies of Briber's Purse, and 2 copies of Outpost Sage are the 15 that Grace is working with on his side. I like Arbor Colossus in this sort of matchup just because oftentimes the biggest green creature reigns supreme, and we saw that in that game, Austin had to kill Arbor Colossus to be able to keep going.
Good against Siege Rhino, good against Wingmate Rock. I think it's an excellent threat for the matchup. Also good against Tassiger, just the biggest thing, as you mentioned. I also like the 2 copies of Outpost Siege. I think this is the kind of slow matchup where Outpost Siege could give Tannon a bit of an edge.
He has some card advantage there.
Yep. He's got to weather the storm of, if you're on Tannon's side of the table, what are you anticipating? Lost spot removal, some sweepers, probably a couple copies of Elspeth, Sun's Champion. That's the type of thing you got to beat, and Outpost Siege is pretty helpful in those kind of games.
Well, these players are shuffling up for game number 2. Again, this take on Green Red Devotion is an interesting one, and I know just the place that you might be able to play it, Patrick. SCG Game Night.
Yep, and you can see here the February kit. We send out these kits every month with pins and tokens to give out to your players. You can run this any day of the week, sanctioned or unsanctioned, whatever format you want. Just get players into your store for some fun and friendly magic. You can head over to starcgames.com/game night for more information. If you want to get signed up, you need to move as soon as possible.
Now you do see the wolf tokens and of course the wolf pin. We have those on our lapels this weekend. You have named, well, you've been having a difficult time naming your wolf.
Yeah, it's between mittens and boots.
I think we go to the perhaps the Twitter audience.
Nope, it's my pet. I don't care what you think.
If you would like to chime in and tell Patrick
Gonna
what you
preempt
think.
you. Don't care what you think.
You're going with mittens? Is that your
Mittens.
final answer?
Mittens is my final answer.
All right, mine's still Boomer.
Boomer's excellent.
That's right. But Boots has been left out in the cold.
Well, there's going to be other animals, I'm sure.
Yeah, who knows? Game night next month.
Right, exactly.
Perhaps Boots is appropriate for whatever crazy cute animal we'll have on our lapels then. We're going to go with mittens, though.
Mittens.
All right, perfect. So now there's 4 people in the booth. Me, you, Mittens, and Boomer.
Boomer and Mittens.
This booth's getting full.
Yep.
Like what I see so far from this Devotion deck, you know, we didn't see some cards show up. There are 3 copies of Voyaging Satyr, so you can go kind of off with Nykthos. Only 3 copies of Nykthos in this deck. Oftentimes with Devotion strategies, you see 4 copies of Nykthos, but I actually kind of like that because that kind of means that this deck can operate without Nykthos.
Yeah, Tannon's Grace's deck here is not trying to go crazy. I mean, it is incidental. It came up that game where Nykthos was very powerful, but he's not all in on trying to make that card as powerful as possible. And the legendary land restriction does come up. So 3 copies is totally justifiable. As you mentioned, you often see 4, but I don't mind 3 as well.
He's certainly capable of doing some things if he has quite a bit of mana. 3 copies of Pelucranos, 3 copies of Shaman of the Great Hunt. He has Arbor Colossus, another one in his sideboard. And he also has 3 copies of Genesis Hydra, so he can, and we can't forget about the 2 copies of Kratos Claws. He can definitely do some things if he does generate a lot of mana, but it's not necessary for the deck to actually work, as we've seen with other Devotion strategies.
Exactly. If Tannon gets to 6 or 7 mana between lands and mana creatures, his deck does some very powerful things. So it's not like he has to have Nykthos in play doing crazy stuff for his deck to be powerful.
Okay, number 2 about to be underway here between Grace and Benson. Benson will have the option to play first if he'd like it. You have to imagine he will take it. Tassiger in his hand, among other options. Windswept Heaths, 2 of them. Also a Sandstorm Citadel, so it looks like a pretty good hand thus far. Grace will give his hand a look. He's good to go, which means game 2 is underway. A Sandstorm Citadel is how we'll start things. Grace deciding which fetch land he wants to play here. He's going to go with the Windswept Heath, play an Elvish Mystic, of course searching up a forest. And simply pass the turn back over to Benson. Benson will take a draw. It's a copy of a Johnny.
And it's possible that another reason to cut Sylvan Caryatid out of this deck is the Tassiger. You want all high-impact stuff, and this build of Obs on mid-range, there's no weak cards to flip over.
Courser of Crufix the draw here for Grace. And it is time for the 2-4. Take a look at the top card. It's a copy of Wishwood Elemental, and just a passing of the turn, Benson will take a draw step. It's a copy of Drown in Sorrow. Windswept Heath will be sacrificed. You see an Hostility still in his deck. Not much of a surprise there. Forest being dug out thanks to the fetch land. And we'll see what Benson has for his 3rd turn.
And Hostilities has got to be one of Austin's best cards, if not the best card for the matchup.
I'm not sure if he has one in his hand, but we know there's at least one in the deck. There's a Drown in Sorrow. Simply there to take care of Elvish Mystic.
Well, it may not necessarily be getting much better than that, but I'm sure Tannon does not mind that turn.
The Scry is done resolving. We'll head back Grace's way. Wishwood's the draw. Courser on top. Grace, lands are not a problem. Won't be able to accelerate very quickly. But it'll be able to build up small advantage with Courser.
A lot of fetch lands to work with as well.
Mm-hmm. There is a Nykthos. Courser will gain a life. And now Courser into the red zone. And Benson going to go down to 16. And that'll be it for Grace's turn. We'll head back Austin's way. Llanowar wastes the draw. Windswept Heath also in hand as far as lands are concerned. There is a Heath. Austin will sacrifice that very quickly, going down to 15 in the process. And we'll see what the follow-up's going to be. Nothing fancy about Obs on mid-range.
Nope, just a pile of good stuff. This deck very light on synergies. Just here's a bunch of really powerful cards.
Speaking of which, here is a Tassiger. A card that has played a role across multiple formats, much like you thought it would.
Yeah, I've been joking about this. I said it was the best card in the set, and I think I underestimated it. This card is going to be incredible in, I think, this format and Modern and Legacy. Probably only a matter of time before Vintage as well.
Rugged Highlands is the land after the Courser. It's gain 3 life.
What a deal.
Absolutely. So Grace putting a little padding onto his life total before heading back Benson's way. Siege right on the draw. You see the hand here for Benson. He does have a Johnny that he's had for some time now. We'll see if he wants to go that route or with the Rhino. Looks like he's going to go with the Ajani here. The elevator only goes up on that card, so that's what it's about to do. Up to 5. Take a look at the top 4. See, Grace will take a look. He wants to know what the top 4 ability is. You may reveal an aura, creature, or planeswalker card from among them, put it in your hand, resting on the bottom of your library in any order.
I think that Austin needs to be a little concerned about trying to entrench himself too much into the card advantage game here, because Tannon's deck is definitely capable of overpowering that. He does need to apply some amount of pressure, and the spending a turn on Ajani kind of takes some of the sting out of Tasigur, because that card advantage could have been generated in a different way. And now Tannon's getting to go into his turn with Nykthos, some Devotion. You know about these Genesis Hydras. There's no guarantee that Austin can just sit on his heels here, generate a bunch of cards, and eventually win the game. These green Devotion strategies are extremely powerful once the board gets set up.
And typically, the longer the game goes, it's better for Abzan, but in this matchup, I don't think that's the case.
Correct. I think that if you have a bunch of sweepers, then it can be better for you as the game progresses. But given where Austin's at right now, even though this board looks really powerful, and it is, there's no guarantee he's got the edge.
Wood of Foothills going to come in. 2 triggers there from Coursers. Grace up to 25. He'll go down to 24 and then up to 26 as long as he remembers everything. Get a forest out of his deck. We'll see the top card here in just a moment. We could have a big turn in store here for Tannon, or this could be the setup turn for the really big turn.
Yeah.
Top card is a copy of a Temple of Abandon.
He also has the option of just removing Tasigur from the table right now with Crater's Claws.
Yeah. Not hard to do thanks to that Nykthos.
I think that play would be really attractive if it guaranteed Tannon could kill the Ajani this turn. Since that's not the case, he may try to do something else.
Yeah, Whisperwood Elemental might be very appealing too. But he is a reach-in. Looks like he's going to go a Fireball in. And now he's going to knock Ajani down to 1. Still a pretty good turn.
Yeah, not a bad turn.
Benson will take a draw.
I think that if I were in Tannon's spot, I probably would have played Whisperwood Elemental, but I think this play is also okay.
Take a look at the top 4. Thoughtseize, an Abzan Charmer, Thoughtseize, and I believe a Murderous Cut.
Womp womp.
Don't see that happen often. The big whiff.
Ajani does not like you playing with reactive cards.
Yeah.
Ajani wants you to be doing some proactive things. Play with some creatures, some auras, other planeswalkers.
Here's a Thoughtseize, 2 Genesis Hydras, and a Whisperwood Elemental. Yikes. The tough thing about those cards is those all basically represent 2 cards.
At least.
Yeah. There's the Rhino. That's going to go back to 16. Grace going to go down to 23. Ben's going to go up to 15. Had to pay a little bit of life to cast the Rhino. Now we head back Tannon's way. Top card here is a Wooded Foothills. So that'll come in. 2 Courser triggers. Take a look at the top card. Courser. Again, Nykthos generating 4 mana at this point. So you can be +1 with Nykthos if you'd like to be, which is pretty nice for a Genesis Hydra. Grace going to sacrifice the Wooded Foothills. Search up a land after consulting the hand. Going to go with a forest.
I guess this means Tannon's very interested in casting Genesis Hydra this turn, because with the creature on top, Whisperwood Elemental is almost always an attractive play.
We'll see the top card of his deck with Courser here in just a second. And it's a Shaman of the Great Hunt. That might be more attractive now.
Yep.
But he's going to go with the Hydra. So let's take a look at some cards, shall we? 5 of them.
This deck has some pretty big turns.
Yes, it does. Quite a few options. Shaman of the Great Hunt, a Xenagos, 2 copies of Pelucranos, and a Mountain are the cards that Grace can choose from. He's going to give it some thought. Of course, the Genesis Hydra, you reveal the top X cards in your library. You put a non-land permanent card, with converted mana cost X or less from among them onto the battlefield. Then shuffle the rest into your library. And Genesis Hydra enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters onto it. So it's going to be a 5/5 here as it's revealed 5 cards. The question is, which card does Grace want to take? Interesting. Opting towards Xenagos, perhaps. And he is. So I guess shuffle those into the deck. Perhaps work his way into them. It's also a shuffle with the Courser.
I think that if Tannon's taking the Xenagos here, he has an intention of getting a Ajani off the table now. You can make a token, send a token and one of the Coursers. That takes care of Ajani. It leaves him with a Courser on defense to protect the Xenagos if he's feeling so inclined.
And Johnny will bite the dust here. Perhaps we'll see a Satyr token post-combat. But he may have missed out on 2 points of damage there.
Oh no, I'm happy with him not attacking Austin there because he's over-attacking the Ajani.
Sure.
So any attack that goes at Austin, Austin will simply block that creature.
Sure. So better back on defense with the one creature.
Yeah.
No matter what, he's going to lose a Courser in that exchange.
The question is, do you want a Courser on defense or a Xenagos token? Because you could have activated Xenagos, made a token, and attacked with one Courser and the token.
Temple of Silence top card goes to the bottom very quickly there for Benson. Hero's Downfall, Drown in Sorrow, Courser of Crewfix, the cards Austin's looking at here.
But only 5 mana, so he's got to pick.
Well, this is where he wants to start, is an attack with the Siege Rhino.
So this attack right here, gotta mean Bioblight or Drown in Sorrow.
He wants to see how you're going to order blockers.
Well, Austin's got to order the Genesis Hydra first.
Oh yeah, for this Drown in Sorrow play to work, that's what he needs to do.
Right.
Now he'll play Drown in Sorrow.
But still not the end of the world here for Tannon. I mean, he gets to go into next turn with his Xenagos still available. Courser Crewfix, some stuff in his hand. I mean, this is totally fine.
Temple's the draw, Mountain on top. Mountain going to come in, trigger, gain a life. Take a look at the top card, another Temple. There's an attack for 4. And now here's Whisperwood. Manifest the Temple, clears that out of the way. Top card, Forest, pass the turn back.
A lot of good stuff going on Tannon's side of the table here. He has a lot of insulation from a sweeper here, the way that he's built his deck here post-board.
Speaking of sweepers, and Hostility is the top card of the deck. But he's doing just fine against that card.
Yep. Whisperwood Elemental and Xenagos are both a lot of game against that.
Whisperwood Elemental, I think a card that, you first read it, it's like, okay, this card's definitely powerful. What circumstances, what deck is it powerful? You got to figure that out. But just watching it play here over these 2 games, you can definitely tell this card's good.
I didn't have enough appreciation for how good this was against a sweeping effect. And for a deck like Green Devotion, that's so important to have a proactive play that still insulates you from end hostilities or similar cards.
It's one of the weaknesses of the deck, is it was bad against sweepers.
Yes.
There's an attack for 4.
Andrew Purdy to the stage, please. Andrew Purdy to the stage at your earliest convenience, please.
And that's just gonna be a concession.
And not a lot that he can do.
Well, Crater's Claws is on top.
Yeah.
Can't get enough of the board off the table with the end hostilities, and that's it.
Yeah. Tannon Grace is going to win this match over Austin Benson. Green-Red Devotion will take care of Obs on mid-range. And this Green-Red Devotion deck is now 2-0, and I imagine